So we continue the topic of secret societies, and we're going to focus on their secret weapon, which is mind control. They're able to turn you into a programmable robot that they can use as a weapon. But before I start that, let's review what we discussed last class. This is a class of ideas and concepts. So it's really important you understand these concepts because we will build on them throughout the semester, okay? So last class, we discussed the transformation of religious worldview during the course of Western history. So at first, there was the mother goddess, then transition to polytheism, then monotheism. And during this transition, the way that our minds perceive the world radically changed in three aspects. The first is that before we understood that mind led to matter. So the universe is just one giant mind that vibrates, okay? And the intersection of these vibrations creates atoms. Then that leads to matter. Okay? But today in science class, you're taught that's the opposite. It's the brain that creates the mind. And as you will discover throughout the semester, this conception that the brain creates the mind, it's very problematic. Okay? So we will discuss this throughout the semester. Okay? The second big difference is before we understood the world metaphorically. Okay? So we saw that the world was controlled by these forces that we could not see and feel, but they were there. We gave names to them, the gods. Now it's all literal. In science class, you're taught that if you don't see it, it doesn't exist. If you cannot measure it, it does not exist. The third big difference is that before we were intuitive. We trusted our heart. We trusted our eyes. But today in science class, you're taught to not trust your eyes. You're taught to trust the data, the tools, the theory. So today is counterintuitive. And this is why school is so hard. Okay? We humans are learning machines. That's what we're designed to do, to learn, to absorb, to adapt. But school is hard because you're taught ideas that go against your own intuition. Okay? So these are the main concepts that we learned last class. So now I want to talk about mind control. Okay? So let's go back to the four earliest civilizations. These are mass societies. So these four societies that first came into being are China, the Indus Valley civilization, the Harappan civilization, which is now northern India, Mesopotamia, which today is Iraq, and of course the last one is Egypt. And of course Egypt was for thousands of years the most powerful, the wealthiest, the most influential. Now, when you have a mass society, your biggest problem is social control. How do you control the population? How do you get everyone to get along? And in each society, there are different solutions, okay? So in China, we developed a bureaucracy. And what underpinned the bureaucracy, of course, is something called the Keju, which is the civil service examination. So everyone's attention, everyone's energies was focused on getting their child to pass the Keju to become an official. And that's what gave China social stability. And guess what, guys? It's still around today. Today we call it the Gaokao, okay? But it's the same system, no difference at all. The IVC, the Indus Valley Civilization, created religion. And what's remarkable about the religion is it is one that preached egalitarianism, equality, as well as peacefulness. And their religion becomes the prototype for Buddhism today. Okay? So what the religion was Proto-Buddhism, and for the longest time, the IBC was peaceful and egalitarian. It was a very prosperous society. Mesopotamia, the solution was war. The difference between Mesopotamia and other places is that there are no natural defenses. In China, we have mountains, deserts, seas to protect China. But in Mesopotamia, it's a desert. And so it's really easy to attack. And therefore, they had centuries of warfare. And that's what kept their society together, because they were always at war with each other. And with Egypt, the solution was the Pharaoh, right? So Egypt is unique in that they believed the Pharaoh was God, and therefore everyone had to obey their God. The problem, though, is that the Pharaoh was not God. And as a human in charge of an empire, his life was always at risk. Okay? So now I'm going to ask you a question. What does it take to be a great leader? In school, you're taught what skills do you need to be a great leader? Just shout out the answers. Leadership skills. But what are they? What are they? Responsibility, right? How about, what else? Wisdom. Openness. Empathy. Excuse me? Regret? Respect, yeah. What else? Knowledge, right? Okay, this is what you're taught in school, and we can go on for a long time. Okay, there are hundreds of skills you need to be a great leader. Guess what, guys? Wrong, okay? To be a great leader in the world, in history, you need 3 skills. And if you just analyze what the leaders of today are like, it will make sense to you, okay? So Putin, Trump, every leader in the world shares these 3 skills, okay? The first is unpredictability. People cannot predict how you will behave. You are a mystery to people. That's the first skill. Second skill is high stress tolerance. So Donald Trump is probably the most hated man in America. Guess what, guys? He goes to bed and he sleeps like a baby. He does not care. Okay? He gets up and he's tweeting, he's giving speeches, he's talking to reporters. He's the happiest man alive. He does not care. And so the last skill is lack of empathy. He does not care what happens to other people. All he cares is about himself. And guess what, guys? To do well in life, you need these 3 skills. Unpredictability. No one knows how you think. No one knows how you behave. High stress tolerance. You don't care. Lack of empathy. You're very selfish. Okay? And these are the 3 skills that leaders need in order to do well. But you know what? We can just use one word to describe all 3 skills. The word we can use is dissociation. Dissociation just means that your mind is part of your body. When you dissociate, what literally happens is your mind leaves your body so that you don't think that what's happening is happening to you. It's happening to someone else. It's like you become an observer in a movie. Okay? You're in the movie, but you're also watching the movie. And this is what leads to these 3 things: unpredictability, high stress tolerance, and lack of empathy. Okay? Another word for dissociation that we use is multiple personality disorder. Donald Trump is so unpredictable because he's literally 100 different people. In a different circumstance, he's a different person. And that's why you can never actually predict how he will behave. And all the great leaders in history were like that, okay? So let me use game theory to explain why this is the case, okay? Game theory. So in game theory, we discussed before how when you have a game where there are millions of different players, okay? The secret to winning this game is cheating. And you do that by forming secret alliances, right? So these three do it. The problem is, this is actually pretty obvious. We understand this rule. So guess what? A lot of people form secret alliances. Okay? So to win this game, if you want to win this game, you have to be part of as many powerful secret alliances as possible. You have to be the intersection of these groups, okay? So you're here, but you're also here. You're also here, okay? But as we discussed previously, these secret societies have developed systems to make you loyal, to make you obedient, to make sure that you will never betray them. So the only way around this problem is to create multiple personalities. Right? Because literally, you're a different person in a different circumstance. And therefore, they're never able to figure out what you really think. Spies have the skill. Okay? When spies are being recruited, the one skill that they're looking for is dissociation. Is this person able to quickly dissociate from who he is? Lack of empathy, basically. They're all psychopaths, basically. Okay? So in real life, in a game, it's a person with the most multiple personalities that wins out. The problem, though, is when we go back to Egypt, the pharaoh is born in that position. So now the question is, are you able to take a person and create multiple personalities from that person? And the answer is yes.